Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Alundra. On the last episode we picked up the merman boots, which give us the ability to swim, which is something we obviously needed to complete this dungeon. There were a couple of spaces we saw already where we can make great use of that ability right now. It should be noted that the merman boots convey all of the powers of the long boots, including the ability to move at normal speed and jump at a normal height on both sand and in shallow water. So basically the only reason we went through the ancient temple was to pick up the sword and to basically solve one room in this dungeon and maybe pick up a couple items I didn't bother with in the external world. Anyway, we can put the ability to swim to use right outside the room we picked up the boots, right here, which I believe I pointed out in the last episode, but more importantly, there's a room much further back which I'm going to skip to. Remember here with a stump? I did point out here as well, and it took some damage getting back here, so we'll heal up with the herb that we picked up in the previous room. I did point out we need the ability to swim to get through this room, and we do, but first we can use the stump to get over to this other treasure chest and replace the herb we just used, thankfully. I mean, I think I had established previously that the game pumps out more than enough herbs that you can use them pretty much anytime you get hit. They get out of date pretty quickly considering they only refill about 5 to 7 points of health randomly, but, you know, might as well make use of them while we come across them. And yes, these guys are still machine gunning their spit at us. It's very awkward to move in the water. You can't actually move diagonally while you're hitting the button to swim. I mean, yes, there is a swim button, so I believe it's the dash button. I'm sorry, the jump button. But Alundra can't change direction while he's using it. So, controls are less responsive than they could be in the water. Meaning, it's a pain if you get knocked in while enemies are shooting at you like those guys. Anyway, we can toss that bush into the water to get an herb. Yet another herb, yes. I believe you can actually go back and get some more, but we're pretty much maxed out already. That door is locked, we'll be coming by there later. The first thing we have to do is clear these guys out of the way because we have to move the barrel over to that higher ledge, and of course, if the barrel hits the enemies, it shatters and we have to start all over again. So I would like to try to minimize the risk of that happening. Yes, as I said, it's locked, but thank you for the demonstration. Alright, this is pretty straightforward. There's a moving platform here, and of course, there's a hidden pit hidden by the wall, underneath the platform we're supposed to be jumping to. There's no reason for that to be there other than to fool the player. It's absolutely ridiculous. As if the platforming in this game wasn't obnoxious enough, the game has to start messing with us. But I guess it paid us back, because it dropped a large life drop over there for us, so I don't need to waste another one of my herbs right there. Alright, what's up in the next room? One of these decaying platforms. Unlike the ones spawned by the switches in the previous rooms in the dungeon, these actually do fall behind you. I think we'll see this as I jump across them. Yeah, there we go. This one is in fact timed based on when you stand on them. And this is a required chest. I believe this is a key to the door that we just passed in the previous room. And there's one secret treasure chest right here. If we jump straight down, you can pick up a gold bar, which should give us enough guilders, what, 30? Yeah. To buy the life drop, a life vessel, back at Lurvy's shop, and I will be doing that pretty much first thing as soon as we finish this dungeon. Let's backtrack a bit and open that door. These turtles seem a little bit more difficult than the ones in the coal mine, although it could just be because I'm doing a very bad job of hitting them in the face with items, and I don't generally have my bombs equipped very often in this dungeon, which is a mistake on my part. Moving right along. Again, I seem to have a lot of trouble not falling into that shallow water with the mud guys, but I guess I'm getting a little bit better at keeping just out of the range of their spit. These guys, of course, are always trivial. They just keep walking face first into my flail. Those are not the only enemies that share that attack pattern. We'll be seeing more of them in the next episode, and in fact a few of the episodes coming up. Not specifically those guys, the ogres, but enemies that share very similar characteristics. Anyway, moving to the next room. It's another one of those larger rooms with a one-shot kind of aggravating puzzle that you only have basically one chance to get correct. Which we will attempt to solve after these guys get out of the way. Or I should say, after my flail gets out of the way of their face. So yeah, we have a time switch puzzle basically. Obviously there are a number of moving spike balls, and we have to traverse this entire twisty path before that block at the other end of the exit falls down. It's easier, or I should say more useful, just to tank a hit if you don't think you're going to make it. You really don't have that much time to spare. Again, not too difficult. It took me about 2 tries to get through that, and this brings us to the upper portion of the first room we saw that we can swim in, the one that we picked up the herb in, and with the stump that I used incredibly poorly during our first trip through this room. exit to the north, and we are introduced to, or eventually, very shortly, one of the most, basically the single most aggravating puzzle mechanic in this particular dungeon. You'll notice that that spiked ball has a column that looks very similar to the ones that we can shatter with our flail, and indeed, we can. In fact, you can shatter it and the ball will simply roll off in whatever direction it was currently going in. You'll use its actual momentum, which is kind of cool, and come to rest against a given wall. In case you can't figure out where this is going, knowing that this game has a lot of obtuse puzzle mechanics, we will have to use that ball to get up on top of certain platforms. Part of the puzzle in this dungeon, again, first off, is to navigate the barrel all the way to the other end of the room without hitting one of these rotating balls, which is not terribly difficult, but still pretty frustrating if you've had to try this puzzle a few times in a row. It's one of those things that I can see people getting wrong a lot once they get really frustrated with a given puzzle, even though it isn't particularly difficult. Thankfully, that did not turn out to be a problem here. There's a lot of room for error in here. The first thing you're supposed to do is run around the column for a while, because I totally forgot which direction you were supposed to hit it in. That was totally my stupidity. The barrel does not give you enough height to get into the upper ledge by itself. You have to jump onto the ball. And here we are. That switch does absolutely nothing except drop you down a pit, I believe, so we'll ignore it for now. But this switch, very slightly hidden. In fact, not really hidden at all, considering I have a sort of pathological need to knock down all these stone pillars for drops, just like grass cutting. It opens this door over here to the left, which contains another spike ball, and as soon as I kill these guys, I notice at some point as a goodwill gesture to these guys, I believe I also take that other spike flail to the face while picking up that treasure chest. I really should have just broken the column down and stopped it from moving, but that chest contains the Gilded Falcon for this dungeon. Wonderful. We've gotten that out of the way. We can basically always assume there's exactly one Gilded Falcon in every dungeon. So once you find it, it takes a big load off your mind not to have to go look for it later, especially if you think it's a dungeon you won't be able to return to. That does happen quite often, as I'm sure you've seen in watching this Let's Play. Moving to the right, back to the mandatory progress, there is, of course, a path to the south. We can't really make use of it just yet. Alright, this is the most difficult, in my opinion, puzzle in the entire dungeon. You have a very small range in which you can actually release these two balls that they'll actually come to rest in a useful location. Get the bomb, it'll be the easiest way to take care of this guy. Of course, somehow I managed to take a hit from him anyway. Obviously, the goal is to put the balls somewhere where you can use them as a bridge to jump to the remaining platforms. This lower right one, in fact, to my opinion, is the most difficult of the two. Just because there are a couple of places it can wind up, even if you get the angle more or less correct, and in fact, it's a very difficult jump to make. So on top of the very small window you have, and I do believe at this point, not this one, but in the next one, I start to get the impression that Turtle is laughing at me. Anyway, if you do happen to get them in the right position, you then have to, worry about doing the platforming properly, and as you can see, that's not easy. I know I stress quite often. Alright, stupid turtle, get out of my face. See, he's laughing at me, look at him. And that was good enough, see? It was distracting me, freaking turtle. Alright, let's swim a little bit here, just checking to make sure that I still have a Wonder Essence, because that's what's in that treasure chest right there, and we can't pick up another one if we already have one. So I'm just going to skip that one for now. Suffice it to say, it's another stump puzzle like the one back in one of the previous water rooms, so we're not going to worry about it right now. Yeah, these guys again. It gets a little tiring after a while. Oddly enough, the strategy guide I'm using, the official Prima guide, refers to these guys by a number of different names, which is part of the reason why I got so confused earlier. It calls them ogres, goblins, lizardmen, zombies. I have no idea what their actual name is. I guess I'll have to look it up later. Yeah, so this is another obnoxious platforming challenge. Basically, obviously we have to use this stack of pots without picking up and shattering it. And this is very difficult for me to do because, the first thing I want to do when I see pots in this game is to collect their item drops. You have to resist that urge and use them to get out to these islands here in the water. Again, this is another puzzle you only have one shot at, because if you put the stump anywhere than where it's supposed to go, you have to reset the room. Or you can fail the puzzle like I did here in the worst possible way and have to swim through all these spike balls because you missed the last jump in the sequence. So let's do that one more time, shall we? This is not exactly an optimal play session for me. I'm pretty sure at some point I just got frustrated going for 100% clean runs in every room. I think to a certain extent it's more illustrative to show some of the more difficult platforming segments by including a little failure in the overall recording. Anyway, all that work gets us I believe this is the last key for this dungeon, and of course I guess I should have known that the easiest way to swim out of here was not through the spike balls, but along the edge. In any case, let's skip back to that room where we found the Gilded Falcon, or the one right off of it, because now we finally take the exit to the south, where the locked door for this key is. This is apparently the prison. That's actually what that sign says. I don't know why there'd be a prison here. While we're here, let's jump in here and save our game. Of course, finally I managed to pick up enough life drops to get back to full life, so the fact that we restore our health there is totally useless to me. Sigh. Anyway, let's unlock the prison, not that there's anything in here, and pick up a couple of pretty useful items, actually. First and foremost, the life vessel. Yes, this is a dungeon where you get the heart container before you fight the boss. It's kind of antithetical to standard Zelda procedure. And a strength elixir, which restores all of your health if you use it. It's the last healing item that we've actually managed to pick up. We've gotten at least one of everything else. Kind of makes the strength tonic basically completely useless, because you can only carry one of them, and they only barely give you more health than the herbs. This puzzle is pretty straightforward, although, again, it's another bizarrely unique puzzle solution. You have to ride these boulders, and of course, this one I actually finished on my first practice run, otherwise I would have known the exact period of that spike ball and I wouldn't have jumped to that other platform out of the way while it wasn't in danger of coming back. You actually do have to jump pretty early there, or else it falls in the pit and you have to start all over again, because you can't get the height if that second rock falls into the pit. But anyway, clearing that puzzle gets us access to the boss room. What are we fighting now? Is it the golem again? Is it another random dungeon enemy encounter like the Merg? Nope. That's actually pretty freaking creepy by the standards of the day. The water's watching us. This is, as you can imagine, the Watcher in the water. The most aggravating thing about this fight is not necessarily the actual mechanics, but the fact that when he becomes manifest, much like he did just when I hit him that one time, you can only get, no matter how fast you jump up to him, one hit on him at a time. So eventually I'm going to move to what I assume is my strongest attack, the sword's charge attack, but I haven't really noticed a considerable difference in the amount of damage any of the attacks do. We'll use it anyway, just for practice, since there are certain bosses where the charge attack does do more damage, and in general it's good to get into the habit of being able to use it, because getting hit does in fact interrupt your charge. He has about 3 basic attacks, all of which you've seen. They just get faster as the fight progresses. He sends out those water arms, which sometimes move at you. He sends out these sort of bullet hell water bullets, which are a lot easier to dodge than I assumed. And occasionally he'll summon up a spinning ring of those water arms to attack you when he becomes fully solid like this. Let's get in our couple of uses of magic. Again, we can use the magic elixir to give us 2 more charges, which in general will be the fastest way to kill the boss, considering that for every boss, magic does the most damage out of anything. But I think I'll stick with just getting our 2 shots in based on the 2 magic drops we start with by default, and not worry about using my items, when it's generally more demonstrative to try to solve the fight normally. At least at this early stage in the game where the fights aren't impossible. Yeah, there we go. See, the arms get a little faster here, and they actually curve a little bit when they chase after you now. So I guess that's a nice way of upgrading the difficulty as the fight progresses. Yeah, see? As long as you don't panic, this fight actually really isn't difficult at all. Considering there's no rush to go hit him when he actually turns solid, especially knowing that you only get 1 hit per shot, you know, there's no particular reason to rush. You can take your time, dodge his attacks, and then when he's briefly weak, run up and hit him. I mean, that's all there is to it. He should be dead pretty shortly. I suppose I could have just stuck with the Iron Flail, especially since it allows me to attack him without getting close. But I wanted to use the sword, because we haven't gotten any mileage out of it in this particular video, and it is our best weapon. Anyway, that's it. The Watcher in the Water has been defeated, basically the second legitimately threatening boss in the game after the Golem. And let's see what happens. I mean, you should get a general idea of how this next cutscene is going to go after talking to Nava, making a reference to some guy named Vul, who I'm sure we're going to meet now. How do I know this? Spoiler alert. For 1, this is post-commentary. For 2, this is my 3rd playthrough of the game. But anyway, let's meet Vul. For some reason, even though Lars is apparently the Sage of Earth and Vul is the Spirit of Water, Vol is yellow while Lars is blue. That seems a little backwards. But he is the second of the 7 Guardians we've met, and we will, of course, be basically basing our quest around the idea of having to meet all 7 of them. So it's a nice marker for overall progress. And of course, this is kind of interesting. Remember the Merg did say that they managed to steal 2 of the 7 crests we were looking for, and that one happens to belong to Vol. Why they didn't also take the water scroll we're about to pick up, I have no idea. But we'll get to put that to use in the next episode. Let's play Alundra. Now that we've completed this dungeon, I will see you then.